virtual event day 4. A couple of announcements before we dive into the session. This is a baby platform, so the attendees don't have access to the mic and the camera, but you can always interact with us and the speaker via the chat section at the right side of the screen. Also, please maintain professional ethics while interacting with the platform, as all your activities are being monitored. And we'll be releasing an attendance form at the end of the session. So make sure you fill that attendance and make sure you use the same name and email as you used in the previous 3 days. And with that said, I would like to welcome upon stage our esteemed speaker for today, the Google developer expert for machine learning, the director of data science at Publicis Sapient, awarded top 40 under 40 data scientist and a recipient of the Halvarian Award, Abhishek Kumar. Over to you, Abhishek, sir.
Thanks a lot, Ashish, for that warm introduction. Hi everyone. First of all, bringing all of you on the Sunday, probably morning, right, or afternoon, whatever you want to call that, right? It's not an easy task. So kudos to the entire team, first of all. So before I get started, right, I want to just probably understand, right, who's this audience is. If you want to just probably type, let's say that if you are probably in a college, you're probably studying in which year, or if you're a working professional, I'm not sure if those are also joining, right? If you can just mention that probably how many work-ex that you, how much work-ex you have, so that at least I can use that to tailor my conversation. Can you put in the chat box? And what you are looking for today? Am I audible?
Yes. So attendees, please mention like your name, year, or branch. So mostly our attendees are from the undergraduate engineering program, ranging from the first year to the last year, and we have attendees from all the branches. So yeah, that's Amitesh Yadav. He's from FE, and also tell that what you're looking forward to for this session today.
Okay, so we have a few students from FE, Electronics and Computers, first year student, first year BTech, okay, not many first years, SEIT, computer engineering student, first year, okay. So Neeraj Bhagwati, well, you are probably first year, second year, third year. Master student, okay. So we have some, if you're a master student, you might also mention what's your specialization. Okay, master students in AI, good to hear. Fifth year student, looking for data science roadmap, okay. Cool, so you can probably keep on typing. Probably what I do have some set of slides, as Ashish said, is probably we should have some slides. Okay, I thought, okay, let's have it. But I'll probably might rush through some of those, might skip some of those slides, and might focus more on some of those slides, right? And content, considering the audience that I can see here. Also, probably keep on messaging what you are expecting from the session. If you have any burning issues, questions, thoughts that you want to get answers, please just probably put in the chat box, and we'll try to cover those. Okay, and Ashish, if you can help me just probably keeping honest with time, because if I go on and on, right, I don't want to probably get into the lunch hours for folks. So, all right.
Definitely.
With that, I'll just try to quickly share my screen. And I'm doing it for the first time on this particular platform. So I'm just probably keeping my fingers crossed. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, try using another browser as I felt. Looks like Okay, I might have to join from some other browser, it looks like. So that's another learning, right? Do all these checks beforehand. So I don't know, I hope that it should work on Chrome, but let me see if I can do it on Firefox. Or any other alternative if you have, Ashish?
It should actually work on like most of the browsers. Just click on the share screen button and then the option
Yeah,
pop.
let me see if I can, if I have to restart or something, I don't know. It gives giving me some error.
Or maybe you
Um,
can share the link to the presentation to me and I will present the screen.
yeah. Hold on a second. Okay, let's give 1 second. Otherwise, I'll have to ask too many questions to you, right? Move here, move left, move right. So just give me, yeah. So while I'm trying to probably try to solve this glitch, please put in the message what you are looking for today, right? Or if any specific question that you have, especially related to data science, roadmap, journey, so that I can, while I'm going through the content, right, at least I can focus on those. Can you do that?
So folks, type in what you are expecting from the session, what you are looking forward to about data science, or maybe the lower fields like AI, ML, or how you will going about in the journey, how to pursue it in college years, and how we can grow in the workforce, which projects to make, or whichever doubts you have. Just type in, and Abhishek sir will help us through all of that. Sir will be joining us in a minute. Keep posting your questions, and we'll also direct the session towards these questions. We'll answer each and one every of them.
So unfortunately, this is the sharing the slides. Let me, I guess, pass it over to you, Ashish. I think that's like the only way out.
Sure. Sir.
So I have sent you the link. Can you just open it up? Okay, so let me go through the questions. Expectation from the company from freshers or related position, importance of data science in future, how it works. I'm here to know about amazing things related to data science roadmap, final year student. How did you become? Okay, GD, that's a good question. Scope and future of AI and data science, one should pursue. Some tips. Okay, cool. As a career option, which language? I guess some of these I'll try to touch upon. Okay, cool. So let's get started. And I have answers to few questions which I'll cover. Some may not. So that probably I'll take up towards the end. All right, Sheesh, if you want to just go to the next slide. All right, so this is what probably I had earlier laid down on the today's session and agenda. I thought probably I'll just share my own journey, and this was one of the questions as well. But some of the things which Ashish has already highlighted, but I'll try to also share probably what are the different things that happened essentially in my own journey, right? That shaped my own career, right? Especially in the field of data science. And then I'll share some of the tips essentially around areas, starting with the career roadmap, how the typical career might look like. I know many of you are very early in this, but at least you will have a good sense around what does it take to probably go to the next level. I have some tips which is around how do you handle DS projects, and that could be an internship projects, or that could be a full-fledged large-scale data science project that you might be doing probably in future in different organizations and companies. Then a few things, especially around resumes, what are the do's and don'ts. I'll try to share some more tips around interviews. And then towards the end, how do you even build effective content and community? So that is what it is. So Lakshya, which college are you from? I'll cover that also. So maybe let's go ahead, probably go to the next slide. All right, so probably let's go through my own journey. So if you want to go next. All right, so timeline, yeah, you just probably take pause because it's a pretty crowded slide. So yeah, my journey was probably a bit different. It was not a typical journey, and obviously it started probably way back in 2007. So it's been 15 years for me in the industry now. Obviously, I probably was CS grad from NIT Jaipur. And obviously CS definitely was one of the passion area for me. But I joined probably another kind of an organization, right? A PSU, interestingly. And the reason being was that I was offered to get into an R&D center for NTPC. Some of you might have heard about this organization. Essentially, where you get all your electricity, right? So NTPC is a power producer, one of the largest power producer in India, right? And my job essentially was looking into their R&D center and their enhancing their AI/ML stream, right? Data science term was not there probably back in 2007. And neither you had all of these fancy languages, right? R was there, but not probably very popular. Python was obviously not very popular. So C Sharp, all of these languages were there. It was an era of .NET, and neither we had any kind of libraries back there, right? So my first task I remember was one of the project that I started, which was around doing some unsupervised clustering using self-organizing map neural networks. And obviously back in 2007, since you didn't had all of these libraries like you have now, NumPy and all of these fancy packages, we had to actually develop a lot of things from scratch, right, within the entire matrix computation. But that was also good learning. But beyond the programming bit and math, machine learning, focusing more around mathematics around it, that was a really good thing. Obviously, there was not much material out there which you have right now. Obviously, now we have a different kind of problem, right? What I call as a problem of plenty. But back then, obviously, we have to find it out from different library and whatever the information you can get your hands on. But beyond what I was doing on the core modeling activity, I also had to probably look into different other aspects because it was a very small R&D team, right? So I was also looking after the database, because at the end of the day, you probably integrate this entire machine learning model into wider system. So I was the developer, I was the DB admin, I was also the UI developer for that matter, right? Because you have to have a front end interface, and that was another journey. And then obviously focusing on a different industry side, it was process industry. So I had to learn a lot of nuances around process and how the industry works, how power plant generation process works, how turbine works, how power plant chemistry works. So it was an interesting journey for sure. And then probably in between, I used to also go to different, whatever the available material out there, right? To learn things, right? Especially around how do you even develop some of these interfaces, how you build some of the basic models. So I came across few books at that point in time, and that definitely triggered my own interest in the field of machine learning even deeper. And then I used to watch a lot of videos, right? And there's videos. So I thought, okay, why not? I should also start sharing something, right? And I guess probably I created my first YouTube video probably back in 2009. It was on a completely different topic. It was on how do you probably develop UI skills and whatnot. But while I was going through all of these, right, and I was taking a lot of courses, I was obviously highly inspired by Poolside, that is one of the leading education online provider, right? So you can see a lot of courses out there. So that also inspired me, right? Okay, I should also write something, right? And I should contribute back to the community. So if you just do a one-click, Ashish, right? So that's where probably my journey around sharing things with community started. So probably I started off courses. My initial courses were around actually using C# to build machine learning models, right? And how to use some of the existing library in that particular era, right? Using NCOG and few other things to build such kind of machine learning models and deep learning models. It was not even deep learning we used to call, right? But some sense of deep learning models. On the tool side. So, and obviously these were very popular courses back then. Then I thought, okay, I'm learning a lot of things. I'm applying my skills on some of the use cases. So obviously my use cases on those times were around anomaly detection, process optimization, and and how do you do forecasting. So some of these use cases, but I still thought probably I need to expand my core data science skills. So probably I thought, okay, why not let's invest into something and get into a more formal degree. So if you click next, so that's where I try to push my own learning even further. I probably did my master's from University of California, Berkeley, especially in the field of data and data science. If you click next, that essentially expanded probably some more things, essentially around more different kind of programming. By that time, R was also became popular. Python was in the initial phase, but a lot of what I call as a wider data science things that I tried to learn. I understood about wider data ecosystem and beyond standard data science around data ethics, privacy. How do you run field experiments, right? So these were some of the key learnings. And then while I used to learn all of it, I always made sure that I'm also involved into sharing whatever the knowledge I have. So then I think back in 2012, I authored a course on R programming for data scientists. Right? And it is still one of the top, a very popular course, which is available. And then obviously I authored some more courses on using Python probably for doing data science. So, and then if you go to the next, till that time, can you click next, Ashish? I used to work on what I call as sensor data, machine data. While it was a great learning, I thought probably can we expand the learning beyond machines, right? And I wanted to apply some of the data science skills on people. And how do we probably extract some insights that can be used even widely? And that's where I joined my current organization, Publicis Sapient. It's been almost 5 years for me now. So if you click next, it was around whatever the things that I have learned so far. Here it simply went on a different scale, right? And the reason being is that in the current organization, I was privileged. I'm still privileged to work with some of the biggest organizations in the world, because obviously we are consulting, right? And we work with probably across different industries. So that means is that talking to different industries across retail, auto, energy, logistics, financial services, and whatnot. So, and then obviously, since all of these clients that we work with, these are some of the biggest brands that you might have heard of. It automatically probably think through how do you even apply some of these skills at scale. But beyond the core technology of the data science, because data science cannot work in isolation, so I had to look into some of the related areas as well, which is around data engineering, data analytics. And how do you even do consultancy, right? How do you even talk to people who might not understand data science language, but how do you talk to business people, understand their requirement, translate that into a more tangible data science problem? And that also means is that you need to also be better in storytelling, right? So some of these skills, I'm not sure, I cannot tell that probably I've mastered. This is still in the progress, but this essentially expanded my own horizon. And then in the due course, if you go click next, I continued to share with the community in different other shape and form. So while I continued to author courses, probably get into a lot of other platforms. So I've been to different kind of a conference, such as Strata conference, AI conference, across the globe, right? London, New York, San Francisco, India also, Bangalore, ODSC, Fifth Elephant. And then if you click next, can you click next one more? Obviously, that's where GD also happened, I guess, probably a couple of years back. So that was essentially just appreciation of whatever the continued contribution that we've been doing. But it also opened up new opportunity for me, right, to reach out to more and more folks, and including some of you, which we are doing today, right? But beyond that, I also thought, okay, we need to further expand the horizon. So if you see, my current set of skill focus areas are around not only all of the things I just mentioned, but also around strategy, right? Also around creating a large scale transformation leadership, right? Obviously, I lead the entire data science team at Publicis Sapient. That means is you have a pretty big team in globally. So that means, and how do you probably mentor them and groom them so that they can also become future leaders? I still continue to probably push learning, right, in different areas. So a lot of my time goes into learning new things. So formally, I'm probably still working with. If you click next, currently I'm probably taking some more courses with the Haas Business School, more around strategy and leadership. So this is my journey so far. Is my voice not clear? Is it? Can somebody tell me? Ashish, is it? Okay.
Can you tell me, is it better or worse? Can anybody just probably ping? Okay, cool. So let's go ahead with this. All right. So yeah, so this is essentially my journey so far, right? And as you can see that the skills what probably we've been working on, it kind of an expanded, right? It is no more just probably one bit which is around data science or machine learning or a certain set of algorithms. But as you progress through your career, right, and that's where probably if you go to the next slide, I wanted to focus on the career roadmap. So if you go probably one more slide, if you see the typical career roadmap get into the different phases, right, which is called I, then T, and then code, right, or I'm whatever to call that, right. I essentially means is that when you are early in your career, you should focus on getting deep into your respective area, right? It could be any specific area. For example, you're working on data science, or within data science, let's say you're focusing on computer vision or NLP or more traditional set of algorithms or reinforcement learning, right? Or any area that for that matter, right? But in the early phase of your career, ensure that you have very deep expertise into at least one area, right? But slowly, as you move through this journey, uh, try to find out how quickly you can go from an I to T shape. A T shape means that while you have a deep expertise into one area, how do you expand and add that breadth, right? So what you see at the top is essentially the breadth of the skill, right? So going from deep into one area to having that deep plus probably supplemented by something which is broader enough is going to help you significantly in your career, right? And as you go probably even further, try to add more such depth, which is not only, let's say, one area, but potentially other area. Now, these areas could be adjacent. These areas could be even probably something completely different also. So if I look back into my own journey, especially when I started with my first job, right? When I was being tasked to do many other things, for example, database and the UI, beyond obviously data science stuff, right? Now in the hindsight, if I look at all of those extra skills, actually helped me to connect the dots even better, right? So that means sometimes you feel that, okay, this is not exactly I wanted, but I can tell you that everything connects, right? And eventually when you go up into your probably career, either way you need to have that breadth of knowledge and potentially depth in not only one area, but more than one area. Until and unless, right, you are, let's say, you are pursuing a very specific research area, right? So for example, you're going for a PhD and then probably pursuing even deeper expertise into one sub area, right? So even then, also, for example, if you're, let's say, pursuing on computer vision, right? So computer vision also has multiple sub areas, right? So there also you'll find different M shape or even comb, right? When you say comb, essentially means multiple such depth areas. So let's go through some of the tips that I have for all of you. These are just simply based on my own experience and nothing cast in stone, right? And it obviously has to be very customized for every single individual, because you need to understand that every individual is different, their expectations are different, their priorities are different, their situations and surroundings are different. But however, probably sharing some of the common denominators here. So if you go to the next, so what the first tip that I always give to probably any budding aspirants, right? And even if you are trying to get into this field, try see that how many can you do more and more diverse kind of projects, right? Now, the reason I have mentioned chicken and egg problem, because I get to hear this problem very often into my conversation, where, let's say, if you want to get into a new job, right? And they say, okay, since I have not working in any project, or if I have not joined any organization, how can I get project, right? Now the people will say, you know what, since you don't have the experience, I cannot give you a job, right? So it's a very chicken and egg problem, right? What you want to do first. There is no right and wrong answer. You can try out different ways. However, at least, especially for the data science area, the good thing is that there is no dearth of material out there. But also there are different kind of projects which you will find online, right? So you have the Kaggles of the world, and you have all of different hackathons and events that happen. At least that will give you an idea that, okay, here are the different kind of problems that you can do, right? Or you can solve. And there is nothing better than solving problems, right? It's important that while you are learning the code behind some of these techniques, maybe through your curriculum, maybe through your program, maybe through your institute, but ensure that you're keeping an eye on how these learnings, the code learning that you've had around these techniques and algorithms, that gets applied into a problem, right? So that's your tip number one. But remember, and that's where your second slide goes. If you go to the next slide, always remember that real world is not Kaggle, right? Some of you might have heard about Kaggle and Kaggle competitions, and I see Kaggle probably competition mentioned in all the resumes and projects everywhere. Nothing wrong in it, but just probably keep in mind that what you see in Kaggle is not a true reflection of the real world scenario, right? What does it mean? It means is that if you have ever worked on any kind of a competition, especially data science competition, you might have realized that they will give you, here is the problem statement, here is the very cleaned up version of a data set, here is the metric that you'd like to optimize. So let's say for this competition, they want to minimize certain kind of a loss or certain kind of a metric, right? Everything is well defined for you, right? In a real world, first of all, nobody is going to give you that cleaned up data, right? We'll have to find out where to get that, and there will be a lot of initial processing and plumbing that is needed to even get to the position where you can do something on top of it, right? And then problem statement itself is not going to be very defined, right? You may have high-level business statement, but how do you translate that into a core data science problem? That is, I guess, very, very challenging, right? And neither you will have any kind of success KPI, right? So While you are doing all of different competitions and hackathons, keep doing it, because otherwise there is no other way, right? But just keep in mind that it is not the true reflection of real world, and there could be some more additional things that you might have to do to replicate the success that you might have had in these competitions in real world. So let's move further. Another tip that I typically give to people, right, is don't box yourself. I have heard in several conversations, you know what, I am NLP person, I am a computer vision person, I am a reinforcement learning person, or I would only want to do, let's say, I want to only write, let's say, use TensorFlow, I want to write only PyTorch, and I've heard so many things, right? But while you are doing it, what essentially you're doing is you're creating a box around yourself, right? And that is definitely not good, especially early in your career, right? If suppose that later on you want to master and be the probably best person in that particular field, yes, go ahead and do that. But early in the career, probably explore more and more stuff, right? Because what happens is, first of all, you get to probably see how the different kind of problems work, but also you can bring in learnings from the other kind of work that you might do, or other technology or other tool set, to what you might be doing right now, right? So it's about expanding, it's about ensuring that you know and work on different kind of things. So let's move ahead. Learn business nuances, right? This is very critical, and probably many. So all of you might have heard about great things about AI, right? AI is great. AI is the new software engine behind industry revolution, the sexiest job of the century, whatnot, right? The flip side is that almost 70 to 80% of data science and AI projects fail, right? They don't see a light of the day, right? These are some harsh realities. And more often than not, obviously there are technology problems that I'll cover next. But the biggest challenge is that data science cannot work in isolation, right? It's not just about algorithms. It's not just about models and techniques and hyperparameters. It's not, right? At the end of the day, we are solving something for a business, for a company, for an organization, for a product. And until unless you understand that business nuances, you cannot apply your skills in a more effective manner. So whatever problem that you've been through, whatever problem that you're starting to work, try to get as much of business nuances, right, as you can, right? Because that will help you significantly, right? You'll be able to connect things better. Why you even embarked on that journey where you had to build some model and write some model.fit. So let's go to the next one. This is about don't get enamored with any technology or algorithm, right? I kind of touched upon it already, but I have seen people who say, you know what, I will only be applying this technique, right? I'll only be doing this, right? So you might have heard this very popular dish, right? Which is, if all you have is a hammer, then everything will look like a nail, right? But in reality, you might need to have probably other kind of tools also, right? So it's not, and also it's that, okay, I know deep learning, so I'm going to apply deep learning in whatever that I'm going to do, right? Remember that you're there to solve a problem, right? Techniques, algorithms, whatever this, right? We have to pick and choose, right? Horses for the courses. So identify what is the problem that you're working on, and then bring the right set of tools and techniques rather than just what you know, right? And that also means that you might have to learn about other things. So let's go further. And this is very critical, right? Storytelling is the key. And I have seen many people, if you see people who make some mark in this field versus people who are really great in their core stuff, but still not able to make their mark, we'll find one key difference. And the difference is these people who can actually create significant impact because they can actually tell a better story. What does it mean, right? We're not talking about normal fables here, right? We're talking about taking your data science work, but applying the right level of abstraction to the audience that you're talking to. Now, suppose you're talking to your, so let's say if you're talking to your, let's say, professor, right, about certain technique and algorithm, it's fine, right, that you're using their kind of a lingo, right? This technique, that technique, this KPI, this parameter, everything is fine. But you cannot use the same language while talking to a business person or to a client or anybody like product owners, right? It is not going to fly because those people are definitely not coming from a data science background. But there, what you have to do is you have to apply that abstraction and say things without using technical jargon, right? And tell them that, okay, how your work is going to create an impact for the organization, right, or for the project. And that's where you need to bring in some of these storytelling abilities. It's not very straightforward. You'll find a lot of material out there, but it will take a lot of practice, right? So practice right away, right? It's not that, okay, once you will get to a certain level of maturity or in your career, then only you should start doing it. You should do things straight away, right? So let's move further. This is probably, I guess, the final one, which is zoom in and zoom out. What does it mean? And even if you're doing, let's say, an internship project or a college project, right? It's very important that we have this ability to zoom in, basically getting into the details, getting into the thick of things, understanding how the different techniques would work, how do you compare different techniques, algorithms, approaches, but also zoom out and understand why we are doing things at the first place, right? How do you even measure the success for it? How do you understand that if this is going to impact somebody, right? So do get into have these different binoculars with you, right, where you can zoom in and zoom out whenever needed. I've seen people, they are either probably the zoomed out version, obviously maybe because of lack of skills, right? They understand the bigger picture, but they do not understand what's going behind the scene. Or probably other spectrum is that people who can only talk about all the intricacies and the depth, but they miss out on the bigger picture, right? So if you really want to succeed in this field, ensure that you're working on your ability to zoom in and zoom out. So let's go at next. So this was some of the career roadmap and some of the tips that might help you, right? So it's saying, right, that how you can learn from others' failures. So I'm sharing some of the tips that if somebody would have told me earlier, right, back then when I was in college or when I was probably going for this particular area, it would have been useful for me. Now, this section, I know many of you are very early in your career and you might not be doing end-to-end data science projects. I'll touch upon some of those areas, but feel free to ask the question towards the end, right, if you want me to expand on certain specific bullet items. So let's go ahead. Let's go next. So whenever you're working on any project, for example, right, and it's not only applied for a data science project for that matter, right, but it is even more pertinent and more important that you should understand the context. And you might have to ask relevant questions, right? And I can tell you that asking relevant questions is sounds easy, but it's not, right? Because it will also come with practice. But ensure that you have this habit of asking the relevant questions so that you can frame your problem statement much better, right? Because typically what happens is maybe in your colleges also, right, your professors might give you, here is a high-level statement, right, of the problem statement. Or that happens even in the real world, probably in the actual job setup also, right, where you'll be given, here is the business ask, right? They are looking for how can you get more customers? How do you probably increase profit? How do you get more revenue, right? Now, you have to ask questions that what does it even mean, right? what do you want to do, and have these layers of questions that will help you to think through what is the right problem, or what is you are trying to solve, and what are the different approaches that it could be. So that's the tip number one. Let's go ahead. Let's go next. Tip number two is define the success KPI upfront, right? How do you even know that the project that you are doing is successful? And I'm not talking about, let's say, just the model. When I say model, this is the data science model, right? I've seen very people, they jump into, you know what, I have this 100% accuracy, a 95% accuracy. That's great, right? That is your model accuracy. That is a model KPI. So KPI essentially those people who have not heard, this is more of a business lingo, which is a key performance indicators, right? So when you say success key performance indicators, well, how do you even define that? The things that you have embarked on, the project that you have started, right? Or it could be internal, it could be college project, it could be client project, it could be office project. How do you even know that the thing that you are doing is successful, right? It is actually going to create some impact. How do you even validate it? And many times it is not going to be very straightforward. So for example, you've been tasked to, let's say, building a recommendation engine for probably certain product or let's say something, right, an organization. How will you even know that the recommendation engine that you have built is better than probably a standard one, right? Or if there was no such recommendation engine, how your work is creating additional impact, right? So thinking more creatively around how do you even validate the success KPIs is key, and you should do it upfront. It should not be a post hoc analysis that, okay, now I have done a project, now I will go ahead and see whether it is creating an impact or not, right? So define that upfront and work through it. Let's go through it. Let's go to the next one. Create baseline. I have seen many people, they whenever I give you a task, right, here's the, let's say, machine learning modeling task, right? We jump into okay, I'm going to apply deep neural network, I'm going to apply graph neural network, I'm going to apply this technique, that technique, right? But I typically recommend that just probably take a step back, create a baseline. When I say baseline, that if the model would not have been there, if your technique would not have been there, what would be your performance, right? It could be simple heuristics. It could be just if you have done just a random pick, what would have happened? Or if you just probably picked the majority, what would have happened, right? And then once you're the baseline, if you go to the next one, Ashish, you should also track your experiment. So for example, okay, here is a heuristic based or standard random number. For example, the baseline is, let's say 70%, right? And now you have introduced a new technique and new algorithm. Now you can compare that with respect to the baseline, whether this current model, a new technique or new set of features and new habit parameters are better or worse, right? And ensure that you're tracking your experiments. Now, this might look trivial, but a project, an organization, probably a large-scale organization, it is one of the most challenging tasks. Consider this. You have an organization with potentially hundreds of, let's say, data science use cases, right? Being worked by thousands of data scientists. Everybody is doing something, let's say, multiple experiments in a day. And suddenly you have potentially, I don't know, 1 million of experiments to track. And then you can't even know what happened probably 2 weeks back when they did something, right? So in a smaller team, in a small projects, you can do it maybe just by writing in your notepad, creating an Excel. In large projects, obviously there has to have some systems, right? So that's going into the world of MLOps and whatnot. I'm not getting into it, but use this even if you're doing a college project, right? It doesn't have to be that you should be doing it only when you're working on a large scale project. So make it a habit. Let's go to the next one. Keep a journal of what worked, but also what did not. And I cannot emphasize enough, right? Because you might have heard about this Edison's thing, right? That he knew that, okay, how not to create 999 ways not to create a bulb, right? So it's important that you know what is working and what are techniques, that things that or the changes that you have made that work, but also understand what are things that did not work, and then dissect the results, right? So for example, what might have happened is that it might not have worked on certain cases, on a certain population, on a certain strata, right? Or similarly, it might have worked on some cases, right, but not that great on others, right? So until unless you're dissecting your results, you'll never be very clear that where it is working, where it is not. So let's move ahead. Now this line, probably I'm not going into detail, but I might have hinted already, is when you're working in a large scale setup, now it's not only important that how do you build a POC on a laptop, right? But how do you do things at scale? Because potentially your data volume that you might be dealing with, maybe in the terabytes and whatnot. How you will do that things at scale? How do you deploy your model? How do you change your model version? So, and how do you know that what are things that you have deployed is not working right now? So for example, let's say this entire pandemic, right? It has shifted the way consumer behave, right? Or what kind of a transaction they do, what kind of things that they watch. If somebody would have built a model probably based on a pre-COVID era, that model is not going to be valid anymore because underlying assumptions have changed. Now, until unless you have a monitoring system in place which tries to identify that, okay, now the expectations have changed, behaviors have changed, and hence your techniques also have to be improved, right, or changed or tweaked. You need to retrain things, right? So having such kind of system is going to be the key. Let's go to the next one. And potentially, I guess this is the last one, and this is also very, very critical, is that ensure that you have regular feedback from your business or from stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it could also mean, let's say, if you're doing an internal project in your college, from your professors and leads, right? Because you don't want to get in a situation where you have spent probably hours and hours and months on something, and then probably on the presentation day, your professor is saying what you have done, right? You don't want to get into that particular situation. So that means is ensure that you are regularly connecting with your stakeholders, right? If you're working on projects and in a job, obviously to business, right? Ensuring that whatever the things that you are doing, it is in alignment to the expectations, right? So let's go ahead. I think that brings to the next section. So far we talked about career, we talked about how do you handle or build data science kind of a project. But when you get into a job, right, the first thing that obviously you have to think through is resume, right? And especially around resumes for data science roles, if you're doing it, going at either for internship or for maybe full-time roles. So I'll share some of the do's and don'ts based on my own personal experience. Obviously, I have screened, I guess, I don't know, thousands and thousands of profiles over the years, interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. So maybe some of these learnings are coming from those. So let's go ahead. The first one, obviously, all of you know, right? This resume is your first representation, right? This is what anybody, right, who is just looking at your profile is going to see for the first time. So that means is make it count. It cannot be just probably one side item, right? This is what is you virtually in a sense, right? In front of anybody, right? It could be an interviewer, it could be in front of a company or any decision maker. To ensure that you are making it count. So let's go to next one. Keeping it honest. While it might look very straightforward, and obviously it should be, but I have personally seen probably many a times where I don't know, many people they try to fake it, They are not very honest, and I can tell you, right, any experienced person, if you are just probably bombarding some bunch of things, you can get caught, right? Because things will not make sense, right? You might go through maybe in the resume phase, yes, but at the end of the day, either probably in your interviews or eventually in your work, right? So why to get into that situation? So keep everything honest, right? Let's go to the next one. This is another probably one of the pet peeve, right? Especially when we do it something, right? Screen through resumes. Don't sprinkle too many buzzwords on your resume, right? I have seen people doing it over and over again. They say, okay, I'll probably put everything into the resume. Resume screener will see, okay, this person definitely knows things, right? But definitely not the case, right? We understand if you are a college person coming or going for internship or maybe a new full-time role, we understand that you might not know everything, and that's completely fine, right? You don't have to master probably 1,000 things, right? Remember. So don't go for this that, okay, I'll sprinkle too many buzzwords and it is going to work for you, right? So let's go to the next one. Mention what you know. Again, I think related to the previous one, which is whatever that you are probably putting in your resume, obviously you should keep an expectation that in the interview, probably all of those things will be probed and questioned. And you should definitely know your stuff. Let's go ahead. Next one. Yeah, some formatting issue, but that's fine, right? Here, just wanted to just share what do I want to see in the resumes, right? And what the overlapping thing is essentially for interns and entry level. So what I would like to see in those resumes, probably some of the key skills, definitely, right? For example, basics. We definitely look for basics, if basics are there or not, right? So ensure that you highlight your basics, maybe common data science techniques, algorithms, tools, programming stuff, whether you understand the mathematics behind the scene or not. If you have done any kind of internship projects, do that, right? But also mention what is the problem statement, right? Rather than just the technique, okay, I applied this, right? I applied the fancy algorithm. That's great. But mention what was the problem statement and what was your role. So many times it's happened is that there are 4 people who might have worked on one project, and if everybody is writing the same statement, right? How does it differentiate? And that obviously becomes even more challenging when we get into campus sessions, right? Interviews, where I see probably candidate after candidate coming and mentioning the same thing. But that means is you have to highlight what was your role, not just that what project was happening, right? Share what was the impact, right? In terms of profiles, if you can add your coding profile, could be anything, right? If you're doing, let's say, lead code and all of it, probably mention that. If you have any GitHub portfolio, mention that, because it helps, right? It helps for people or interviewers, right? Just validate things, go through your material, what you have done, see whether you're following best practices, what kind of a level of code that you can write. And then there are brownie points, right? These are brownie points. If you have it, great. If you don't have it, good, that's fine, right? But brownie points essentially are being used whenever there is a tie, right? What does it mean? So suppose that we have to take only 3 people, right, from a certain campuses or maybe for a certain role. If keeping everything's same, brownie points becomes the decider. They decide that, okay, whom you want to push. So people who are obviously involved into things beyond their day-to-day things, beyond their projects, making sure that they are involved into different knowledge dissemination, they are sharing their work with a wider audience, they have maybe publications, they have certifications, they are writing articles, they might have received some awards. So all of these becomes differentiating factor. So this is about what do I want to see in resumes. So if you go to the next one, this is the same thing, but probably I'll say a mid-level. I'm not sure if anybody here are like working professional. If you are here, all the things that I just shared, definitely those I expect. But beyond that, in the key skills, I would like to see much more wider aspect around data science, right? Not just probably the common stuff. How do you have applied data science in different kind of problem statement, different kind of things, right? Have you even productionized any model? Have you put things into production? Projects also, diversity of work definitely is important. And as you go up in your ladder, the breadth of the skills and the business impact becomes even more critical. Because then, until you are able to demonstrate the work that you have done, how it has impacted the organization or the project or a client, it's very difficult. So these are all the resume tips. Let's move to the next section, which is around interviews, and especially focusing on data science interviews. I'm sure that all of you are maybe already preparing for stuff, right? So the first thing is know your stuff in and out. Whatever that you have put in your resume, whatever that you're sharing during the interviews, ensure that you know things in and out. And that goes back to one other point that we talked about, right? If you are just probably putting all the buzzwords, you're putting yourself into a trouble situation, right? Because the person who is taking interview, the person can ask a question around anything that you have mentioned. The expectation, whatever you put in a resume, is that you know that thing. So rather, you should keep limited things which you are really sure about it. You know all of those things. Only keep those things. Right? It's much easier for you to practice, prepare. So understand your things, understand things in and out. Somebody want to go deep, they can. So let's go to the next one. Give business problem or business or problem context before jumping into the solution and technical aspect. Another I have seen many times in interviews that I have taken where immediately people jump into I applied this technique, I applied this algorithm, I did that. But you typically lose the interviewer's attention, right? Rather, start with why this problem was there at the first place. What was the context, where it was supposed to be applied. Start with that before jumping into solution, right? They are there to understand the solution and technical aspect, but until and unless you connect that with the wider context, it's very difficult. So that's your tip number 2. Let's go to the next one. Highlight the business impact of your project. Right? So for example, whatever the project that you might have done, it could be internship project, it could be college project, it could be probably once you are in a job, right? Or any other project you might have done for other organizations. Try to highlight what was the impact that you were able to create, or the project was able to create. And how did you measure the success at the first place? So what was the methodology that you applied to tell that, you know what, at the end of the project, I can tell you that I was able to create such kind of impact, right? So how do you even do that? How do you even measure it? So keep that in mind. Let's move ahead. And share what worked. So especially in interviews, probably interviewers are there not only just to hear out things that work, but also to highlight, understand what are things that did not. And I would be more happy if you would have told me that, you know what, I tried this, it did not work, it failed miserably. But I learned that it is because of certain things. Right? Maybe I was not applying the right technique, or the problem was not framed properly, or I don't know, data was not sufficient. And then you say, okay, I tried to do this, that has helped to make it work, right? So when you talk about things that did not work, that shows the kind of an effort that you have put in, right? Because typically that things that work, maybe that's only one. But I'm sure that behind that one success, there might be many failures. So why do you want to probably hide that information? Because that is really critical. all of us understand that data science, especially is a field, it's almost impossible to crack the problem right at the word go. It's almost impossible. It is incremental in nature. It's completely fine if things are not working. But what you are doing is critical. And suppose that you might have done a project where it never worked, and that's also fine, right? Just share that why it did not work. What are the things that you try to alleviate different kind of problems that were there, and let it be, right? Every story should not be a success story. That's completely fine if it is not. Let's go ahead. Clarify your role in projects or teams. I guess I already touched upon it, but especially during the interviews, when you're talking about a project, you should definitely clarify, here is what your contribution was. Not just that here was the project that was there, right? Because typically a project may constitute multiple people with a different skill set or even a bigger team. So what was, suppose it was a 10-member team, what did you do? What was your contribution? What did you brought to the table? Right? So these are very critical, because this also shows that your honesty, whether you're open to demonstrate what your contribution. It doesn't have to be a big bang again, right? Even if it's a smaller contribution, it's fine, because smaller contribution by more team members eventually adds up. It's an additive, right? And eventually it can make a project successful. Let's go to the last section, I guess. So we talked about, okay, here is how you can take up your project, here is your career roadmap, here is how you will approach your interviews and resumes. But many of you might also be interested in getting into a lot of these forums or probably sharing things, right? How do you make it even more effective? How do you probably build a community that is thriving, right? So let's look into some of those tips that, based on my experience. And the first one is start early. So there is nothing called as that, okay, you should have at least this much of experience before you should start getting into this, right? There's nothing like that, right? You should start as early as you can, because in the early phase, it's fine, right? Things might not work, but you will get more and more feedback and learnings, and then you can apply it again. If you are doing it probably for later, the time for improvement is you are narrowing it down. So rather, you should start as early as you can. Let's go to the next one. Be authentic, especially when you are creating content, and it could be different shape and form. Nobody wants to just probably read a ripped off version of somebody else's work, right? Also, when I personally try to get into any kind of an article or things, I would like to see what is a new thing there, right? What this person is adding to that content. You can always take inspiration, but whenever you are doing it, ensure that you're giving due credit. Don't just probably copy paste for the sake of doing it. Ensure that, hey, you know what, I took inspiration from there, and that's completely fine. That's how community works. You build upon others' ideas, right? So all of the papers and research papers, right? Every research paper is probably building upon the previous work. So there's nothing wrong in taking inspiration from the previous work or existing work, but whenever you do, ensure that you give credit, and probably your content should speak about the contribution that you have made on top of whatever that you have done, right? For example, and it could be, let's say, even if it's a survey document, right? For example, your article where you are surveying different kinds of techniques or technology and algorithms. At least your contribution is you are trying to understand what the approach that works, what approach that does not work, or under what context it might work, what are the different techniques, right? So at least you are adding that layer. So ensure what is your contribution. Let's go to the next one. Be regular. So it should not happen that, okay, you have written something or you have created something today, and next you are doing potentially after a year or 2 years, right? Rather, probably do it at a more regular interval. Obviously, you have to be more disciplined, and you have to probably put into practice. But see if you can. Right? It's not easy. There are probably more prolific authors and content writers like that, right? But again, this is more of a habit. But also at the same time, it also depends on so many other factors, right? Maybe the time that you may have. You might be still learning a lot many things, right? So keep all of those things in mind. Create your own plan. How frequently that you want to contribute. Yeah, let's go ahead. Follow top creators and authors and content creators, right? And try to observe what they are doing right or differently, right? I'm sure that all of you may have been following some, let's say, YouTube channels, right? And the one who simply like stood out for you, they must be doing something differently, right? Either the clarity, or they're bringing some new perspectives, or they are doing things which have not been done before. So what exactly it is, right? Try to just jot it down, and then try to see, can you adopt those, maybe slowly, if not immediately. Let's go to the next one. Add diversity. So there's a reason I probably mentioned this slide. For example, maybe early in your, probably in this journey of content and community, it could be that, okay, you might want to start with maybe writing blogs and articles, and it could be maybe for internal consumption, maybe for your own college. It doesn't have to be in the public forum always, right? But slowly expand it. You say, okay, now I'm writing maybe for my group, maybe then I'll switch to probably writing it for entire institute. Then I'll get into writing it for public audience on internet. And when you're doing, let's say, a writing thing, it has a different proposition versus when you create a video, because then you have to think through more real-time sense, right? Because there has to be a story, and how do you weave in all of those story, how you will represent it, what is the best way of representing in a video and a screenshot kind of thing. And then you have a conference where you might be dealing with live, it could be virtual or it could be live. But you might be dealing with audiences. So how do you tailor your content with for your audiences? So let's go to the next one. Help others, right? And that is also very critical, because what we say is the collective learning is the most effective one. So as an individual, we might not know everything, we might not master everything, that's fine. But as a group, we can, right? Where so form groups, smaller groups, big groups, doesn't matter, right? Create those groups with probably similar thought process, mindset, and goals. Because what happens is when you're working in a community, you take inspiration from your peers, from others, and then use that inspiration to channel the work even further. So bringing all of that collective learning and work probably is far more fulfilling as well, I can tell you, right? Beyond it being more effective, but you also feel that, okay, you have contributed something back to the community. Yeah, from this slide I have kept because many folks, they reach out and ask this question. I want to be, say, NGD, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to get this badge, I want to get that award. My recommendation is don't do things for the sake of getting those things, right? Keep doing honest work, keep following your path, and things will happen. It might take time, it may happen sooner, it may happen later, but don't rush for it, right? What I call as a life is not 100-meter sprint, it's marathon, right? And every situation is different, every person's different, their expectations are different, things are different, but ensure that you are keeping an honest work, you're disciplined, you are continuing to do what you are doing, and eventually things will fall in place. All right, so I guess the last one is that take the first step. Don't hesitate. It doesn't have to be perfect. I've seen many people, they typically hesitate that, okay, I will not take that first step. It has to be completely perfect. It has to be pointed, pitch perfect, unless you're an avid Amir Khan fan, right? Don't do that. just probably put it out there. Take that first step that you want to do towards whatever that we talked about learning, about sharing, about getting into community, and things will happen, right? Once you take first step, the other things will start to happen, right? It's all about reactions, right? And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? We should not even aim for that perfect world. There's nothing called as perfect world, right? So go ahead with it. Be open to feedback though, right? So for example, you took the first step and let's say something didn't work as per your expectation. That's fine, right? But take the feedback, what happened, and try to not repeat the same mistake again. Come up with a better version of it. So I guess these are some of the tips that I had, especially around content. And I leave all of you with this thought, right? Some of you might have seen this. So what exactly it is? It is 1.01 to the power 365 is 37.8. So this equation essentially represents 1.01 is taking that 1% improvement that you can do, but do it regularly for 365 days, essentially means for an year. And you will see there is a 37.8 times impact that you can create with respect to obviously the start of the year, right? So it's all about taking these tiny steps, doing these smaller incremental things, but doing it regularly. Because if you are doing it regularly, it can create much bigger impact. So don't wait that, okay, I'm going to, I don't know, this happens even if you're doing, let's say, gym or something, right? You go ahead and probably day one, I'll do, I don't know, 100 reps and whatnot, right? It doesn't help. Rather, take that one small step. Okay, so, and I guess if you go to the next one, I guess this is the last. All right, so I'll take a pause and I'll take some questions. I'm not sure, Ashish, the participants are expected to unmute and ask questions live, or is it more on chat only?
So what we do is we have activated this Q&A session is active, so people can just drop in their questions and you can answer them one by one.
Sure, cool. So you can put it in the Q&A box. I can take some of the questions that I see in the chat box, and the things that I might not have covered. So which language is better to go for AI, like Python, JS, JavaScript, or R? All right, so I think one slide, in fact, I had kept it, which is don't get enamored by technology, right? Use the toolkit that is needed for that particular task. For example, let's say R, obviously not many people use nowadays, right? But especially R is still being used by many statisticians, right? And some of the quick things you can do in R. Python obviously has evolved much better, right? But it has its own place. Better ecosystem. So if you have, let's say, learning things for the first time, I recommend going for Python rather than R. The reason being is R is still very narrow scoped, right? Python obviously you can integrate with wider ecosystem and it's widely adopted in the industry. JavaScript, well, JavaScript has its own place, right? So for example, if you are building some solutions which is, let's say, browser based or anything, right, which might include you can use JavaScript, and lot of many packages are already out there to use, like TensorFlow.js is there, right? So JavaScript, why not, right? Have one base language, maybe Python, obviously more popularly used in data science, but supplement it with other languages. So for example, JavaScript. Is AI good to choose for MS? Why not? It's definitely one of the hottest field in the market, and it will continue to do so. Especially now we are living in a world where data is the, what you call as a new oil, what you call, right? Because everywhere we are generating data, all the organizations want to use their data assets to gain competitive edge, to do things that they have not done before. Introduce data to probably create new kind of products and services. And so that means is data is going to play a big role. And data science obviously is one of the key aspect towards that journey. So it's definitely a great career option. But why the reason I'm saying but is while it is great, it is you should not just jump into this bandwagon just for the sake of doing it. If you really have interest into all of these aspects, then only you should do it, right? And also keep it honest, probably keep improving. It's not only data science alone that can create an impact. When you bring all of different skill sets together, and that's where magic happens. So let me take another question. So tell us about the scope and future of artificial intelligence in data science. Shall one pursue this? Yes, definitely. I think I already answered. Career for placements. So again, so I think, see, for example, you may have already been on this path, you may be not so far based on wherever you are in the career. Let's say too early first year and second year, you're still figuring out what you want. It's not the only thing that is happening in the world. There are so many cool stuffs happening in the world. Again, if you have interest, then you should get into it. And also, suppose that for one reason or another, right, you might have not got an, let's say, an internship or an offer, especially in this field. But that doesn't mean that's the end of the world, right? Go ahead with what you have. And like I mentioned earlier, every skill that you have is going to help you down the line. Even if you have got into a standard SD and standard, let's say, web development project, all of those learnings are going to help you down the line. If you really have interest, you can make that switch at any point in time. So let's take some more questions. I have civil engineering background, but now working in exploring and fine-tuning of large language models. Appreciate if you guide me way to Google or advanced NLP companies. All right. So, well, yes, NLP is one of the area. Definitely, it's very important. One thing though you should keep in mind is this is also an area which is getting more saturated. Especially some of the very standard ones. Since you mentioned about language models and whatnot, right? Because all of these models typically require, I don't know, huge data sets and whatnot. And many organizations, especially the big ones, right, like Google's of the world and others, they have already mastered this, right? And if you see the accuracy of some of the state of the art, it is already beating the human. So the core NLP field itself, while you'll find, unless you are in a deep research if you want, right, because there are still a lot of problems yet to be solved, like meta learning and whatnot. But for many organizations, if you see, they are focusing on applying these skills for their domain, right? So you have to probably think through what kind of a role you want to get into. If you are looking for more around PhD and research into one kind of a technique, go ahead and do that. If you're looking for applying your NLP skills, then you need to probably think through how you can combine NLP with business, right? So that's a slightly different route than things. Which language model is best for code to code translation? Again, this is changing so rapidly. I'm sure they might be following Hugging Face and whatnot, right? And others players on OpenAI and others are coming. There is so many things are happening in this world. So I don't want to probably comment on any specific language model. Things will be changing. What probably is right now might not be the best probably after some time. I'm working on GPT and the language model, I think the same thing. Discuss, yeah, feel free to probably reach out. Any other question? I think, let's see, Q&A box. Yeah, I don't see any Q&A box. Question. Sir, tips for first year fresher. First year fresher, if you are, my recommendation would be focus on your core studies, right? Don't rush. Ensure that you have the right basics in place. especially for data science. It is built upon a lot of mathematical underpinnings. And that means is ensure that you have the right mathematics in place, right? So focus on your calculus, advanced calculus, your set theory, your probability theory, because once you will go through any of the research papers and whatnot, you'll find that they're using all kind of cryptic languages. So ensure that you have basics in place. Programming, no matter if you really want to get into this field, programming is not an option. Even though you'll find that in the industry there are flavors of what you call as citizen data scientists, people who may not know programming, but they may want to use certain kind of tools to do things. But I typically recommend, especially let's say if you're a fresher and whatnot, ensure that you have very strong programming skills. Last but not the least is analytical skills, right? So analytical skills are definitely key component, because how do you even think through the problem statement? How do you approach the problem? That is what anybody would like to look for, right? So when I take interview, I understand that the people, let's say campus and other things, right? Campus placements. We understand that you might not know everything, right? And you don't have to know everything for that matter. But as long as you can think through the problem, you look at the bigger picture and ability to have that zoom in and zoom out thing that we talked about, you're all sorted out. Any other question, keep on putting into the chat. We have already, I think, got into the lunch phase. Hopefully all of you are also having lunch on the sides. Roadmap for machine learning in finance. Machine learning in finance, good question, Diksha. Finance is ripe with machine learning use cases, by the way, right? But at the same time, finance is also a very highly regulated sector. So that means is the kind of an expectation in the financial world are slightly different. So what does it mean, right? So they typically focus on techniques which you can explain. So explainability plays a big role. That typically comes at the cost of applying more sophisticated techniques, even though there are a lot of research are happening, right? That how do you still take all of these black box models, but still able to explain why it happens. For example, there are norms that if you're taking a business decision, suppose that you have been declined a loan or you have been declined a credit card, and that is coming from some kind of an algorithm. The algorithm also has to provide detailed explanation why it happened. So that means is explainability is important. But one more tip, especially for finance folks, is understand the business domain. Right? It's very important because, for example, retail is one sector where you understand things because all of us do shopping, right? So we understand how Amazon's work, how the online shopping, how e-commerce works. You might not know all the details, but at least on a high level. Financial services obviously has a lot of different small industry nuances, right? So have parallel tracks, one track for understanding the domain, how the financial services works, how the different domain works. And then obviously, how do you apply these data science techniques? So that is for your ML in finance. Let's see if I can take some more question. Any other question, please put in the chat box. Expectation from the company, from the fresher in the data science or related position. Well, expectation from the fresher, like I mentioned already, analytical skills, you should have a basics very strong. If you have done some kind of internship, great. Even if you may not have done it for one reason or another, maybe see if you can do some kind of projects outside, for example, the Kaggles of the world and hackathons. But you should be able to understand why it is happening. You're able to connect the dots. And as long as you can do that, you have strong programming skills, you're all sorted. Let's see if I can take some more questions. Aniket Pandey from IT Branch, looking for data science roadmap. I already covered that and this. Unless you have any specific question, Aniket. Let's see. All right. Looks like we don't have any other question, Ashish. But feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, on Twitter, whatnot, right? I'm not a very Twitter fan though, but reach out on LinkedIn and I'll try to respond ASAP.
Yes, I think there are no more questions. So first of all, I like to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because your words, experience has been very insightful. And I personally have attended like a lot of data science sessions, like AI, ML, and not only this, and many career guidance session, industrial upskilling session, but the tips that you have provided, I don't think I have saw them anywhere else, and it was very helpful and impactful as well. I personally saw that there are many tips that I have been doing this, or maybe this is the right thing I have been doing, and it will also act as a constructive feedback and help my productivity and growth. I'm sure a lot of attendees would have benefited from the journey. Just thank you so much for having a hosting, giving a talk here, and I hope everyone is inspired. And so I'm also thank you for the detailed presentation and invaluable tips.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining, and hope you have a good lunch. We've already in the lunch hour, and have a great time. And last, probably one final tip before we close. While we talked about all the great things and technical and learning and everything, ensure that it should not come at the cost of your mental well-being, your health, because if you're not healthy, if you're not mentally healthy as well as physically healthy, nothing is going to work out, right? So it's absolutely important that we make a right balance in terms of what we do, but also keeping our health intact, as well as your family, right? I think that's most important. So thank you everyone for joining. Reach out, and I would like to hear your feedback, probably, or anything that you want to know, right? So put it on the post. Tag me if you want, if you have any specific question. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Attendees, I'll drop the attendance link in the chat section. So you can take like a 4-minute break or 4 minute to fill the attendance form, get refreshed. And we're having a Technoverse quiz from 1:40. Okay, it's 1:36. So take some minutes, like if you want to have some water or just get fresh, and fill the attendance link, and we'll begin with the Technoverse quiz at 1:40 p.m. So hey everyone, welcome back. I know it's a long session, but we have the exciting Technoverse quiz here. It will just take like a 10 to 15 minutes, and additionally, you will have a chance to win goodies and a certificate of merit at Technoverse signed by Google DSC. So Amay, if you can present the screen.
Just a second, I present the screen.
Sure. Okay, everyone. So we are beginning with our Technoverse quiz. So what you have to do is you have to just visit kahoot.it and enter this game pin, which is 5072241. I've dropped the link in the chat box. So what you have to do is just visit this link and enter this game pin, right? 5072241. And please enter your full name so that when if you're a winner, then we can be able to contact you, right? So please use your full name and real name, of course. Okay, we have 32 attendees. So everyone just join in quickly. That's Om, Mihir, Chinmay, Nasya, Darshan, Suhail, Bhavesh, Ankit, Sapan, Sairam, Dofil, Shonak. If anyone is left to join, please let us know in the chat box if you have any difficulties. We'll begin in a couple of minutes. Make sure that the screen is visible to you all. And is that everyone? Okay, we'll wait one more minute and we'll begin. Come on, guys. If anyone's left, please join in. Okay, then let's begin. Anna, you can start. Okay, so the first question on your screen is, which of the following helps to mitigate cross-site scripting? Okay, so the correct answer is content security policy strict. And 8 people have answered it correctly. Let's see the leaderboard. So Sairam is leading along with Karthik and Sahal. So yeah. The second question, which speaker at Technoverse is a YouTube content creator for Mind Dogs? So we have 4 speaker sessions and one of them was a YouTube content creator for Mind Dogs. Can you guess which one was it? So yes, it was Himanshu Singh. So if you attended the section, you might know that Himanshu Singh was a YouTube content creator for Mind Dogs, which is actually Asia's largest community for Android developers. Let's see the leaderboard. Okay, so Sahal has taken the lead along with Dhruv and Nandini. The third question, guess the development framework logo. So you have this image on the screen and this logo does it represent? So the correct answer is Ionic and 9 people have guessed it correctly. And what was the name of the first AI programming language? Is it Lisp, Fortran, Perl, or IPM? Okay, so that was a very few people had answered this. So yeah, it was actually IPL, which was the name of the first AI programming language. Which of the following speakers is a recipient of the Hal Varian Award? So if you have attended our sessions, you must know that who is won the Hal Varian Award. PS, it's someone who you met recently. So yes, it's a speaker for today, Abhishek Kumar, who has won the Hal Varian Award for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence. So Priya has taken the lead along with Neeraj and Kev, and Lakshya is the highest climber. The sixth question, Burpsuit is an internet platform for attacking what? So I think the cybersecurity enthusiast must know this answer. Also, if you have knowledge about web application or web development, this might be very helpful for you. Yes, so it's web applications, used to attack web applications. The seventh question, which company does not accept cryptocurrency as a form of payment? So one of these companies does not accept cryptocurrency. Can you guess which one that is? Is it Twitch, Tesla, Meta, or AT&T? So yes, it's actually Facebook or Meta. So they still have to accept the form of payment as cryptocurrency. Moving on. Chinmay has taken the lead along with Rishi and Adnan. Don't worry guys, there are still a lot of questions, so gear up. So the correct answer is Ericsson. Ankit has taken the lead along with Chinmay and Siddiq. The 10th question, which of the following is not a backend framework? It is Laravel, Next, Happy, or Revel. So yes, the correct answer is Next. It is not a backend framework. And we are halfway to the quiz. You still have another 10 questions to climb up the ladder. Chinmay, Ankit, and Dhanush have climbed the top, and Tahir is at such a streak with 3 correct answers. Way to go. Which of the following can help an AI agent perform better? So, learning, observing, perceiving, or all of the mentioned will help an artificial intelligence agent perform better in its model, algorithm, and accuracy. Oh, so many of them mention all of the above. But yeah, so the AI agent can specifically perform better by learning. Because again, at the end of the day, it's an algorithm and we train it and help it learn stuff. Mihir has taken the lead, and I think a lot of streaks have been broken here. Ouch. Guess the Linux distro. This must be easy if you have an background on OS and have been using this distro. It's Fedora, Arch, Ubuntu, or Debian. So the correct answer is Debian, and most of you have got it correct. So Mihir has taken the top position, and Naufel is the highest climber. He has moved out 9 paces. Guess the logo. Again, an image question. Can you guess what logo is this company? So Nest, Sun Microsystems, Qualcomm, or Tencent? So yes, it's Sun Microsystem. As you can see, it is like a SUN. It has been rotated and made a logo of. Very clever. So Mihir maintains the lead with Neeraj and Chinmay. The 14th question. Speaker Anubhav Sinha of Amazon did not mention which of the following. So this should be actually easy. So we talked a lot about 3 of this stuff. And if you know the speakers at the Technoverse, you might know the answer to this as well. So yeah, it was about Android development. Anubhav Sinha was a speaker for web development at Amazon. He had an educator at Newton School. He has a LinkedIn page called Go Carrier where he posts various insights and opportunities, and he has participated in the Google Summer of Code. Again, one of my favorite questions. Guess the logo. Into Firefox, Dolby, Cisco, or Sony Vaio. So the right answer is Cisco. Yes, it's the logo of Cisco, and a lot of you have answered it correctly. Neeraj, Mihir, and Dhanush are leading. We still have 5 questions, so get up. You must create an application that instantly records all file uploads to a cloud storage bucket. What do you use? So if you have a prior background or any knowledge of Google Cloud and participated in a cloud program, you might know the answer to this one. Yes, it's Cloud Functions. So Cloud Function will help you upload all those files to a cloud storage bucket. Okay, so Neeraj is still leading, and 3 players have dropped an answer streak of 4. Okay, moving on. It is the 17th question. Which model refers to the placement and administration of cloud's infrastructure? It's again a cloud computing question. The service, application, deployment, or I'll be just tricking you all. The answer is none of the above. So the answer is deployment, and quite a few people have actually given the right answer. And we are down to the last 3, which is the oldest search engine of the internet. Is it Yahoo, Excite, Ask, or Web Crawler? So it's actually Web Crawler, and many of you have answered it correctly. Come on guys, the last 2 questions on your screen. What was JavaScript initially called as? Was it called Babel, Mocha, ECMAScript, or LiveScript? So JavaScript was renamed after this one. The answer is LiveScript. It was earlier called as LiveScript, and eventually it became as JavaScript as it is known right now. The last question on your screen for Technoverse is, what is the result of 100 divided by 0 in JavaScript? Is it NaN, 0, error, or infinity? So the answer is infinity. If you have 100 by 0 in JavaScript, it will return you with infinity. And let's see who our top performers are in the Technoverse quiz. So the third position goes to Dhanush. Congratulations, Dhanush. Second goes to Mihir. And first, the winner of the Technoverse quiz is Neeraj. Congratulations to all the winners and the runner-ups as well. So you can just reach to me via my contact number or LinkedIn or anywhere else, and shortly we'll be giving you your certificate of merit. And also congratulations to all the participants who have been us throughout this journey, attending all the 4 sessions and this quiz. The quiz wasn't easy, I acknowledge, but you have given your best, and I'm super proud of this community. You can take a screenshot of this, and you can also share it on your LinkedIn profiles as well. Amazing. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much the entire team of GDSC for hosting such an wonderful event. And we'll meet you all on the other side. Winners, please contact me personally, and we'll get started with your dispatch of goodies and certificate and all. Thank you so much for attending, guys. We will have a Technoverse hackathon from starting tomorrow, and the information will be passed on to you. And please follow us and connect us on different social media platforms so you don't miss any announcement from us. This is Ashish Konchada, the GDSC lead, signing off. Thank you.